Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I find that I have taken your class earlier. Is it correct? Have I taken your class earlier? This section?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Which one?
Sir, field theory.
Acha, second year field theory, huh?
Yes, sir. Second year, second semester.
Okay, good. So that way then you are well accustomed to my class. Now, I can see that already 43 people have joined. What I once again request, I don't know who is the contact person of your class. Somebody has to be one or two, must be the contact person. Please send me an email with a list of student and their email numbers and roll numbers. So 3 columns: name, roll number, and email. So you should send that Excel sheet by email to me. Anyway, now let me start. What we have decided is, have you seen the routine or not? Have you seen the class routine?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yeah, so you can see that class routine is Wednesday 2:30 onwards. So what we have decided that now, for the time being, Professor Keshav Bhattacharya will take from 2:30 1 hour, and then from 3:30 I will take the rest of the period. This will go up to middle of February as per our mutual agreement between Professor Bhattacharya and myself. After that, probably we will swap it. So accordingly, today I am taking the class at 2:30, but next week I will be at 3:30 and Professor Keshav Bhattacharya will be at 2:30. So please note this. And if you have any query regarding Professor Bhattacharya's class, contact him. This is regarding the scheduling of the class, and the subject topic, you know that this is high voltage engineering, uh, and this has been divided into two parts. The part that I am going to take is basically called high voltage generation. Now, what I am going to talk about is, let me show you. As you already know from my last class, that you will get all the notes. So there is no botheration of taking notes on your end. You will get the PDF files. So you can study those files. But now let me show you how I start it. Yes, here. So now I'm showing you a PDF file. Now you have to tell me, is it coming on your screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So as you can see here, that as I told, that I am going to talk about the high voltage generation, but let's not make any confusion here. I am not talking about the thermal generators or the hydel generators like that. So I'm not talking here about the generators that are used in power system. Then you can always ask me, then what is this high voltage generation? So the answer to that question is very simple, that you know this is purely high voltage generation in testing laboratories. Then again, next question you can ask me, that what is the need of that high voltage generation in testing laboratories? Again, the answer is, our power system, the electrical power system today is one of the most critical infrastructure of any nation. You can clearly understand that if the electrical infrastructure fails, what will happen to all the other sectors? Forget about IT and others. So this is a critical infrastructure, and there are n number of components, equipment that we use so that this entire power system runs with stability. It's not a simple job. You are not aware of the complexity of it. It is a very, very complex system. The reason is that any disturbance in the electrical system, it is first of all of short duration, no doubt, but the time constant of the electrical system is also very short. It's not like a mechanical system where the inertia is high. So what happens, any short time duration disturbance, that affects the system very severely. And now, Indian power grid is one of the largest synchronous grid of the world. If you are not aware of it, please remember, Indian power grid is one of the largest synchronous grid of the world. It starts from very, far away, Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, then to Kerala, to Gujarat, to Arunachal Pradesh. It's a huge network. But in spite of that, it is an integrated network. They are all interconnected. So any disturbance at point one, that immediately affects the operation at point two, which may be 2000 kilometers away. It's a fact. In fact, the last major blackout that happened in India and entire north, east, and western region went out of synchronism. That means they went out of the power grid. You know what happened? It is very interesting to, it was later on found that there was a substation somewhere in Haryana. They were supposed to draw power, say X megawatt. But on that day, on that particular time, they were drawing double of that. Now, that's not normally permitted, but it happened. And that sort of overloading or overdrawing of power, that is also a type of disturbance. And then that disturbed that particular network. Then that went out of synchronism. And then you will not believe that within a couple of seconds, it was around 10 seconds, the entire north, east, and west, excepting the southern India, the entire India was dark. There was no electricity. It happened so fast. So it's a highly complex system. And we have, as I said, n number of components and equipments which actually makes this system operable. But the issue is that they should be also reliable. And these are high voltage systems. Okay, let me show you interestingly one thing. Let me stop sharing this one. And then I'll show you one other file which will be very interesting to you. Let me find out that file. That is our growth of Indian power sector. It is a fascinating growth. Just wait, I'm finding that file. This I have got from Power Grid. Here. Correct. Okay, now see here, I am showing you a graph. Now it will come on your screen. Is it now coming? You can see it?
Yes, sir.
So if you can see it, then clearly you see how our transmission sector has grown. You can see that after the independence during the 1950s and up to say 1956, 57, we had only 132 kV transmission lines. Then around 1956-57, the 220 kV system started. And that was running for a very long time till 1973-74. And then in India, the 400 kV system came. And by the way, when 400 kV system came, the other systems are already there. They are not out of operation. And then came the HVDC, because as the system became complex and complex, people understood that we need the HVDC for two reasons. One is, of course, bulk power transmission. The other is to maintain stability of different regions, particularly connecting the different regions. And then beginning of this century, we in India had the 765 kV transmission lines. This is immensely high voltage, you have to understand that. And then it was understood that even plus minus 500 kV HVDC is not enough. So in this decade, I mean, not even 10 years from now, plus minus 800 kV HVDC is installed. Now, therefore, you can see how our power sector has grown, particularly from the transmission line. And if you look into, what is the total circuit length in terms of kilometer of all these transmission line, this is not just 1,000, 2,000. This is of the order of several lakh kilometers of transmission lines. This is something we have to really imagine. Can you imagine, say, for example, 3 lakh kilometer of or transmission line of this high voltage level? How many equipments will be there? And if any of these goes wrong, the transmission sector then fails, and you and we will not have any power. Now, what is the requirement? Requirement is that the equipment that we are going to use in real life, they should pass certain tests to ensure that in use, they will be reliable. So therefore, an equipment that will be used in 132 kV system, we have to test it in the laboratory before being put into operation. But we will not test it at 132 kV because there will be over voltages in the system. So taking into all that factor, we have to test it at a higher voltage, and that equipment has to withstand it. That is the primary reason for which we need to generate high voltage in our testing laboratories. This is actually this course, the core area of this course. By the way, I would like to show you one or two diagrams just to make it interesting to you, so that you have a practical idea that whatever you are studying is not just for the, passing an exam. What you are studying is real life problem. So I am going to show you our one more thing. Just it's coming on your screen. Yeah, I hope now it will be there. Is there anything there? You can see the staircase?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now look from the left. This is exactly how our Indian power grid has grown over the years. As you can see, pre-1991, that means up to the end of 1980s, Indian power sector were divided into regional grids, not any national grid. And you will be surprised to know that these grids were not synchronized. That means one grid may operate at 49.8 Hertz, another may operate at 51.2 Hertz, and so on. So they were all segmented and individual regional grids. But this was immediately, that was a lot of discussion was held that this should not be the case. So a lot of efforts were put in to, synchronize these regional grids. Now you can always say, what is so big thing about that? There are a lot of technicalities in it, that how do you maintain the frequency, this frequency control, which is a highly complex control. So now, in October 1991, finally, at least Northeast and East was synchronized. So 5 regional grids then became 4 regional grids. And then all these efforts, it went on, and in March 2003, the major interconnection happened is West and the East Northeast. That means you can see the yellow color here. These became synchronized and they became one network or one grid. And then in August 2006, and you can see here that each effort from 1991, it took 12 years to synchronize the Western grid. So you can see the complexities. It's not that people are lazy. No, there are a lot of technicalities. So in 2006, because people have already learned how to synchronize grids, so within 3 years, the northern grid, they were connected to the eastern and western. So it became 2 grids in India, the northern and the southern grid. Then there were a lot of issues which were not all technical, but then it took 7 years further, and then finally in 2013, the Indian grid became one single grid that you can see here. This is now one single grid. That means power from Arunachal can flow to Gujarat, power from Jammu and Kashmir can flow through Kerala. This is how our system now operates. So this is another very interesting practical aspect of it. And one more thing I would like to show you. This is again very important historical aspect of our power system engineering, and high voltage is part of it. That is how our generating capacity changed. So another graph is coming on your screen. Is it coming now? A bar chart.
Yes, sir.
So you can see that this is called the capacity of our generating units. I am talking about generating unit, not generating station. That means these are the individual generator capacity. So you can see that up to 1977 or 80, our individual capacity was about 210 megawatt. In fact, when I 10 megawatt was installed, before that it was order of megawatt. That means one unit. Things changed dramatically, and NTPC was formed. You know, National Thermal Power Corporation was formed when actually I was a student, and when I graduated, a lot of my friends joined NTPC, and now they have all retired from them in their job. And NTPC first installed the 500 megawatt units. That was in the year somewhere around 1991, like that. So you can see here 500 megawatt. But then steadily it increased, and now you can see around to 2016-17 units have been installed where one unit is 1000 megawatt. Unbelievable. Can you imagine 1000 megawatt is one unit? So this is how our entire system is growing, and the technology is growing accordingly. But all said and done, then the issue always comes that this should run with stability. So that's what is this course that you are going to, or rather my part of the course that you are going to go through. Now, when I say testing with high voltages, then you should immediately ask me, what are you talking about voltage? Voltage doesn't make any sense. I have to specify what type of voltage. Now, when I say type of voltage, basically I am talking about the waveform. So you know that the most common waveform that is available in our power system is the 50 hertz waveform. We call it the power frequency voltage because 50 hertz is our power frequency. In the entire world, you know, there are two frequencies which are the power frequency. One is 50 hertz, the other is 60 hertz. Indian system is 50 hertz power frequency. So naturally, the equipment that will be used in our 50 hertz power system had to be tested. So for that, we have to generate high voltage within the lab, but not for transmitting power, but only for testing purpose. This we have to keep in mind. And then when I say testing, a very important question I will ask or put forward to you, that take any electrical equipment, a generator, a transformer, a motor. There will be three type of materials involved. Number one, conductor. You can have aluminum, you can have copper, and so on. Number two, the magnetic materials, the core. So you will have steel, silicon steel, this, that, all that. What is the third type of material that we have in these machines? There are, as I said, there are three types of materials. So
Dielectric material.
which one?
Dielectric.
Okay. So basically you mean insulating materials. The insulation, because without insulation, our system cannot run. So when I say testing a machine, exactly which material we are testing? Conductor, magnetic material, or the insulation? Which one we are testing?
Insulation.
Exactly. So we are basically testing the insulation because the failure that occurs because of the higher voltages and the higher field intensities, that's not for the conductor or the magnetic materials. So it is the insulation that we are going to test. And then you can ask me a next question that, see, in a power system, this transformer or the generators, they will be running 24 into 7. So how long will test? That's an important question. The answer is also very simple, that I mean, this has been studied a lot and now it has been standardized that we'll test it for 1 minute. So it is called 1 minute power frequency test. That you will do it, or I don't know whether you have already done it in the high voltage lab. This is a very common test on high voltage equipment, and in fact, Jadavpur High Voltage Lab performs such tests very regularly, and we demonstrate to our students also in the labs. But now, if I ask you, okay, fine, that one is AC, the power frequency. Is there any other waveform in our system where our power equipment are working? Any other other than this power frequency? Any other waveform? I'm not talking about just simple transients, but which may be long term or like that. So any other that I just show you recently, I mean, couple of slides. There it was there, if you remember. What was there other than the high voltage?
DC voltage.
Yes. So I showed you HVDC. So there were DC voltages and they are not low. You can see plus minus 500 kV, plus minus 800 kV DC system. So extremely high voltage of DC. So therefore, we need to test these equipments under DC voltage also. So we need to generate DC voltages in our laboratory for such testing purpose. By the way, let me tell you, there is one more aspect of generating DC voltage. Can you guess anywhere else very high DC voltage is required other than this power system? Any other application? This is a very common knowledge because engineers should have a good common knowledge. Forget about electrical system, any other system where high DC voltage is required. Your common knowledge, what does it say? You don't know? Actually, you know, but what I repeatedly tell you that you don't observe properly. You might have seen, might have heard, but you have not noted it in your brain. These are the all very higher end.
Railways.
Railways, correct. Railways is of course a part of our system, which is 25 kV. I am talking about the medical instruments. All our, these MRIs and this and that, they operate at very high voltage, their machines. If you anytime go to that, that unit, you will be seeing that at what voltage they operate. Otherwise, they cannot generate that sort of signals, or rather the testing waveforms. So we need DC voltages in our lab for testing. So we need high voltage AC. We need high voltage DC. Any other waveform is there we need to test in our real life power system? No. There is very important waveform. You know that. The moment I will say, you will immediately say, yes, yes, I know that. What happens when there is lightning? Natural lightning. That's an extremely high voltage. And since our power system is outdoors, you cannot say that there will be no effect of lightning. So there will be lightning over voltages. So we need to generate the impulse voltages in our laboratory also. So if you look into, this is a very short note, 2-page note, where I am telling you that we need to test with power frequency voltages, then we need to test with lightning impulse voltages. Then what is the difference between these two? There is a big difference. What is the difference? That is, what is the wave shape of the impulse? That I will talk about in this class in details. And that is the important aspect, that I have to generate very specified wave shape in our laboratory for performing the test on the equipment. Because if you don't do that, then whatever results you get is not as per the real life situation. But then, apart from the natural lightning which generates such impulse voltages, there is a second source also. What is that? That is called the switching of the electrical components. Whenever we do some switching, and switching in a large power system is very, very common. We switch on off the load, several, equipment, capacitors, this and that. So switching is very common. So the moment we switch these equipments, there will be switching impulse, because from your circuit theory knowledge, you must be knowing that the moment a circuit topology changes, topology means that any component is changed, any circuit configuration is changed. This is called change in topology of the circuit. So anytime the circuit topology changes, there will be a transience, which can be analyzed, Laplace transform and others. So we can find out such switching impulses, and they will be there in the system, and they are also higher voltages. So we need to generate switching impulses also in our laboratory. What is the difference between lightning impulse and switching impulse? For that, again, we have the standards, that means the national standards. We also have international standard, where the switching impulse waveform has been specified. This is Basic wave nature is similar, but the time duration is widely different. The lightning impulse is of very short duration, whereas the switching impulse is of much longer duration. Now, one more thing has come into our power system. This is called GIS, or gas insulated substation. And it has been found that in this gas insulated system, these switching impulses are very, very important because they can create a lot of problems if not properly taken care of. So, considering all that, we need to generate the switching impulse voltages in our laboratory. So, this is the four different types of voltages. Once again, I repeat, one is testing with power frequency voltages, that means AC 50 Hertz. Testing with lightning impulse voltages, that means the voltage waveforms which is similar to the waveforms that we get in natural lightning. Then we testing with switching impulses, that means the waveforms that we get when the components are being switched in our power system. By the way, there is another way we define it, that lightning impulse voltages are also called the external over voltages because they are not generated within the system, and the switching impulses are called internal over voltages because they are generated within the power system. So that is also another way of representing these over voltages. And then finally the testing with DC voltages. So this is what you may expect from this particular course that I am going to take. Now today I am not, this is the first class, so I am not going into the very details of everything. What I am going to do is give you an overview of the first lecture, that is, it is coming on your screen now. So hopefully you can see generation of high AC voltage. That's what is our first topic. Now, in any high voltage laboratory, if you visit, you will see that there will be either or of these two, whatever you can see here. That means either you will see a testing transformer or you see what is called a series resonance circuit for generating 50 Hertz high voltage. By the way, I have a very common question that is being asked in many interviews and others. Just listen carefully this question. You have a AC series RLC circuit. I repeat, you have an AC series RLC circuit which is supplied from a 50 Hertz source. I have put an AC voltmeter which measures the RMS value across the capacitor and across the supply, 2 voltmeters. Is it possible that the voltmeter across the capacitor will read double the source voltage? That means the voltage across the capacitor is 2 times the source voltage. Is it possible? Who can answer that? First answer is yes or no. Then comes the explanation.
Yes, sir.
Who is it?
Sir, Swarnadik Saha.
Yes, Shaunadeep, you are saying yes. Okay, now can you give me brief explanation how it can happen?
Sir, when the series RLC circuit in resonance, we know that the voltage across the inductor and the voltage across the capacitor will be same actually, and the supply voltage is equal to the voltage across the resistor. So so in that case, the VL and VC may be many times greater than the supply voltage itself, because whatever the value of VC, the equal and opposite amount of VL will cancel it, and overall supply voltage will drop across the resistor in resonance.
Okay, excellent. So this is absolutely correct explanation that you have given. And this is for this purpose, you can see this second part is given, that is series resonance circuit. That means by means of series resonance, we can generate high voltages. Please remember this fundamental aspect of circuit knowledge. This is not circuit theory. This is a very simple knowledge of electrical AC circuit. Anyway, that I will discuss later on. First, I will start with the testing transformer, because transformer is an equipment most probably you are already aware of that this is used so widely. Now, there are transformers in our power system which are called power transformer. But what we are telling here is not power transformer. We are saying it is a testing transformer. That means it is used only for testing. Now, naturally, you will, or rather, you should ask me, what is the difference? Is it the same? Well, they are not same. So we have to tell you that what are really the differences. So most importantly, you have to understand that power transformers deal with bulk power. They are transmitting power of the order of hundreds of megawatt, at least, on if not 50, 60 megawatt of that range. But testing transformers in the laboratory, they are not supplying any power. What they are doing is they are testing the insulation of an equipment. Therefore, the power rating of a testing transformer is very low. Just for your information, this is again a practical tip. Typically, if you take the secondary, that means the high voltage side of the testing transformer, current rating, it will be typically of the order of not more than 1 ampere, just 1 ampere, even less probably. Because you don't require a high current for testing insulation. If an insulation draws high current, it is no longer an insulation. So an insulation draws very low current, generally of the order of milliamperes or less. So you don't require more than 1 ampere. Sometimes 500 milliampere is enough. So it is only of the order of few 100 kVA. For example, if you come to our high voltage lab, it has a secondary voltage rating of 250 kVA, but its current rating is only 0.5 ampere. So its power rating is only 125 kVA. Let me see if I can show you a photo of our laboratory high voltage transformer, just to give you once again the real life touch. I am sure I have this photo in somewhere. Just let me find out. Okay, just one moment. Images. What is it? Here. Here. So I'll show it to you now. So I'll show you this one now. Yeah. Now you will see it. So you can see this now?
Yes, sir.
See, this is our high voltage lab. If you can see my mouse moving, this one here is the 250 kV, 250 kV testing transformer. By the way, testing transformers are always single phase, because you don't require 3 phase for testing. That is not required. So you can see this is actually a real life testing transformer. So this is what we are going to discuss. So let me go back to our basic discussion point again. So power rating is one major transformer and testing transformer. Then voltage rating, that is an important issue. See, if our system voltage is 132 kV, the test voltages will not be 132 kV. It has to be higher because we always has to test that whether the installation is able to withstand over voltages. That is the important part. So voltage rating of testing transformer is normally very high, but the current rating is generally low. On the other hand, the voltage rating of the power transformer may or may not be very high. It could be high 400 kV also. But most importantly, the current rating will be also very high because they are supposed to carry a power of the order of megawatts. Then a very important difference comes, that is what is called the continuous rating or not. Power transformers, you know that we don't switch off the transformer. When we switch on, it just works 24 into 7 into 365. So they are designed for continuous rating. That means for continuous operation at their whatever rated value. But for testing transformer, that is not the case. Testing transformer is used only when we test an equipment. And I have already said that testing occurs only for 1 minute. But as you know, to prepare for testing, you require some time, etc. So typically, a testing transformer is rated for 30 minutes, whereas power transformers are continuous rating. So this is another major difference between the two types of transformer. There is something called short circuit impedance of a transformer. Can you tell me what is this? Who can tell me what is short circuit impedance of transformer? This you must be able to say because you have studied probably last semester also.
Impedance of a transformer when secondary is short circuited.
Secondary short circuited. Yes, correct. But this is which impedance?
Series impedance.
Series impedance. Coming from what?
Leakage impedance.
Yes, that's a very
And
good
copper.
answer. Correct. This is the very good answer. This is the basically the leakage impedance. Because resistance is generally very low, so we have the leakage reactance. It is basically that leakage impedance of the transformer. That's called the short circuit impedance. And you know how to determine that. I think you are aware of open circuit and short circuit test of transformer. You know that?
Yes, sir.
So we do that and we can determine. By the way, if you look at any transformer in real life, and if you look at the nameplate where all the ratings are given, you will be finding one interesting thing. That impedance is never given in ohms. Generally, impedance is ohms, but you will find that impedance is not given in ohms. It is given in percentage. Impedance 4%. Can anybody tell me what is it? Why is it percent?
Unit value.
Pardon?
Per unit values.
Yeah, but explain what is it?
Sir,
That's
actual
per-
by value.
Just one by one. Who is telling? Shahrukh Ali. Okay, you tell.
Yes, sir. Because sir, per unit value on the both side of transformer equal. So
Oh,
calculation
wait.
is very easy.
Now that is the the benefit of using per unit value. I am saying what is per unit value? What is 4% impedance? You explain. If I say impedance is 4%, what does it mean?
Actual by base value.
Again, all the thing, very, very impractical way of explanation. Anybody else can give what is actual by base value, right? How do we get it?
Sir, base impedance is equal to the base voltage square by base volt ampere.
Just a minute. Base value, etc., comes from the power system. When a transformer is manufactured, there is no such transformer can be used in a power system. Transformer can be used in a factory, but still impedance will be given as a percentage. So what is the then percentage means there is something numerator, something in the denominator. So what is in the numerator? What is on the denominator?
So rated value, base values are basically the rated values.
Correct. This is number one. But rated which value? There is voltage, current, power. Which value?
So normally the voltage and power are given as rated quantities,
Correct.
and current and impedance are calculated from those. The rated current.
See,
and
basically, let me then tell you. This is, very straightforward. As you rightly said, we know the KVA rating and we know the voltage rating. So from that, we can find out the rated current. So rated voltage and rated current is known. Now, our impedance, that ohmic value, that can be measured. There is no problem with that. So what do the manufacturers do? They measure the ohmic value. Then numerator is rated current multiplied by that ohmic value. It becomes a voltage drop. And denominator is the rated voltage. So this percentage is nothing but what is the voltage drop as a percentage of the rated voltage. So 4% impedance means that series impedance will cause a voltage drop at rated current, 4% of the rated voltage. That is how we represent. After that, you can do all sorts of per unit and all that. But fundamentally, it is a voltage drop in the series leakage impedance as a percentage of the rated voltage. So this, if you look into the nameplate of any power transformer, you will find that it is typically 4 to 5%. We generally don't go above that. Any idea why? Why not 10%? Why not 15%? Because this short circuit impedance being high has one advantage, because in that case, whatever be the short circuit impedance, if it is 5%, just from an engineering point of view, you can make a reverse calculation that if there is a short circuit, your current will be 20 times your normal current, because it is 5%. Very simple calculation. So if I increase the short circuit impedance, my short circuit current goes down. So that's automatically a type of protection of the system. But we don't do that. Why? It is typically 4 to 5%. Reason is again very simple. See, in a power system, there will be a lot of transformers in series. Because of the long transmission lines, there will be intermittent transformers at different substations. So if you increase the short circuit impedance, now you can imagine how much voltage drop will occur in the transformer itself. That's not a good thing, right? Your system voltage, if it drops because of the transformer itself, that's not a good thing for the power system. There are a lot of problems associated with that. So we don't do that. So, but on the other hand, for testing transformer, we need to protect the transformer. Why? Because when I'm testing an equipment, I'm not sure whether it will be able to withstand the voltage or not. That's why it has come for testing. Some equipment will pass, some equipment will fail. But if an equipment will fail, then it's a short circuit. So the short circuit current should not be high. We should keep it at a much lower value. That's why for testing transformers, this short circuit impedance is of the order of 20%. Now, you can raise another question that if the short circuit impedance is 20%, then when I apply the voltage, the transformer terminal voltage and the voltage or rather not terminal voltage, transformer induced EMF and the transformer terminal voltage, there will be a big difference because the impedance has a drop, 20% impedance. There actually the answer is very simple because when the equipment is tested, the current is extremely low. The high current will flow only if there is a breakdown of the equipment. But that is a failure. We don't bother about that. So under normal condition, current will be very low. So the voltage drop in the series impedance of the testing transformer will be quite low, even if the value is of the order of 20%. So this is the another important difference between these two transformers. Another very important issue is that a testing transformer in a single day, I can test 5 different equipment. So I will repeatedly switch on and switch off. But every time I switch on and switch off, there is always switching transients. As I earlier said, switching is always associated with the transients and associated with an over voltage. So that will be always there. On the other hand, a power transformer, as I said, once it is switched on, we don't switch off. In fact, probably it will be switched off after 1 year. So this switching on and off operation for testing transformer results in lot of over voltages. So this testing transformers design is different from the power transformer because they had to be designed to withstand this switching on and off very repeatedly, which a power transformer does not require. So that's a very finer points of difference from the design point of view. And the last one, so very importantly, is explained with the help of this diagram that see at the bottom, this is my testing transformer. The low voltage side is our supply side. Then I have the high voltage winding. Then this CSH is nothing but the capacitance of the winding itself. We call it shunt capacitance. Then at the terminal, I have my equipment. And as I said, I am testing the insulation. So basically, it is like two electrodes between which we are applying the test voltage, and I have the insulation. So it is nothing but a capacitor because insulation is a dielectric. So it's a capacitor. So this CL stands for the load capacitance. This load could be an insulator, it could be a bushing, it could be anything. But it is a capacitor. So the current that it draws is not a lagging power factor current. Even if the current is low, it's a leading power factor current. Then there is something called voltage regulation of a transformer. Anybody can tell me what is voltage regulation of a transformer? What is voltage regulation of a transformer? Just tell me the definition, that's all. I don't want any. Yes?
So it is defining as a difference of no load voltage minus full load voltage divided by no load voltage.
Okay, good. You have given the exact equation. So basically there are two terms, right? No load voltage and full load voltage. So generally, which one is lower?
Full load voltage.
Full load voltage. Now, why is it so? Because you are computing the drop as I into Z. And in this case, R is very low. The resistance of the winding is very low, but you have to think about the inductance, X. But now when the current is leading power factor, if you draw the phasor diagram that I will explain not today, then you will find very interestingly that this voltage drop, what we are saying, because of a capacitive current flowing through an inductive reactance is not a voltage drop. It becomes a voltage rise. It will be very easy. I will show you in my next class with a phasor diagram. Therefore, what will happen in this case is the full load voltage, that means when the test equipment is connected, the voltage will be higher than the no load voltage. That means the open circuit voltage. This is very typical of a capacitive loading of an inductive circuit. There is a very common example of that in power system. Anybody knows what is it called? In a
Ferranti
power
effect.
Ferranti effect. Exactly the same thing happens in power system when a long transmission line is open circuited. That means only the transmission line shunt capacitance is drawing the current. The same thing happens. That means the receiving end voltage becomes higher than the sending end voltage. Exactly same thing happens here. So power transformers, whereas they supply the load, and our power system load is typically lagging power factor load. So their voltage regulation is typically positive. That means the full load voltage is lower than the no load voltage. On the other hand, the testing transformer is mainly drawing capacitive current, and therefore the full load voltage is higher than the no load voltage, and as a result, the voltage regulation is negative. That's a very major difference. Now, why is it so? I tell you one thing why it is so important. Now you can see this equivalent circuit. Normally, what we do, we put a voltmeter to measure how much voltage I am applying. So I am putting a voltmeter across the transformer terminal. But now there is an interesting thing that this voltage, if I measure it under open circuit condition, and then I apply this voltage to this load, the voltage that will appear across the equipment will be higher than the voltage which we have measured at the transformer terminal open circuit condition. Or effectively, what will happen is, if I am supposed to test at 100 kV, I have calibrated my voltmeter at the open circuit condition. Then under load condition, that means when the equipment is connected, the voltage will be higher than 100 kV. That means I am testing at a voltage, say 105 kV. And the equipment fails because it is not designed for 105 kV. Now, this is not a fault of the equipment designer. This is a fault from our testing side. I have not taken proper care. So it is very important to remember in mind that testing transformers in laboratories, they have a negative voltage regulation, which means open circuit voltage is lower. And when the test equipment is connected, the voltage is higher. So this is the importance of, the theoretical knowledge as you are going to apply it in practice. I repeatedly tell all of you that you are Jadavpur University engineers. When you will go to work, whether it is any field, doesn't matter, software, hardware, anything, there will be a lot of people who will be working under you, but they may be working there for last 20 years. So if you ask them that if this has to be done, they will immediately tell that machine will do it. They know that this machine can do it in this way. But what they don't know is why that machine can do it, or why this is the procedure which we follow. But they know the procedure. As a Jadavpur University engineer, it is your duty to know this why. If you don't know this why, then you are just a technician. You are not an engineer. I am sorry to say that I have seen many times this thing that this is missing, and this is the cutting edge that our students should have. I strongly believe that this is the cutting edge, and we the teachers, at least I personally feel that I am responsible to tell you all these things. At least two students, if you listen to me and follow this in your life, you will be benefited, and I will feel happy that at least I can help two students. And if more students follow, I will be even more happy. So this is what is my initial lecture, and next class onwards, I will straight away now go into the technical details, and starting with the voltage regulation of testing transformer, and then we go step by step. As you know, if you have done my class, so you know how I go forward. So that's today. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Uh, Anything you want, any clarification?